Chapter 5. I'm not a moody person, Sky proclaimed defensively. Either that or you're a little puritanical, Enzo retorted. We shared a single kiss, nothing more. I'm sorry, Sky framed shakily, reaching for her morning coffee only to meet Enzo's hand instead. Long brown fingers enclosed hers in silence. Regrettably, that silence thrummed like a drumbeat inside her, and she dropped her eyes to the tabletop as her insides liquefied at even that minor physical contact. She felt as if she were burning up, and the ache between her legs appalled her. It was exactly that same feeling that had made her want to throw herself at him the night before. No guy had ever made her feel like that, certainly not her ex. It was as terrifying as it was thrilling, and it was her problem, not his. What's the favor? It's a big one this time, but as I own the Blackthorn Hotel, you could accommodate me, if you chose to do so, because I can free up your sister to take care of the kids while we're away. You own the Blackthorn Hotel? Sky studied him, eyes wide. I thought your family business was related to packaging? Companies diversify. Enzo shrugged. I own hotel chains, property, all sorts of stuff in different fields. The Blackthorn belongs to one of the luxury chains. Oh, Sky said, shattered by the thought of any one man owning so many businesses, because it made the extent of his wealth much more obvious and real to her. And you don't like that, do you? She scolded herself with a mentally curled lip of scorn. After all, the richer Enzo was, the more out of her league he was. As if he weren't already out of her league. With his devastating good looks and charisma and even hotter kisses, never mind the playboy reputation that would enhance him in the eyes of some women. This favor? Enzo let go of her fingers to make an uncharacteristically jerky gesture and frowned. I refuse to go into any details, but 2 months ago, I went to a dinner party drunk with a drunk and not very ladylike partner, and something very embarrassing happened. I was in disgrace with my family. Madre di Dio. I made my grandmother cry. Everyone makes mistakes, Enzo. Sky recaptured his hand to smooth the back of it gently, recognizing that the recollection still filled him with regret. You're very tactile. Enzo breathed. Sky reddened and immediately let go of his hand, clasping her hands together on her lap to keep them from temptation. It's the kids. I'm always touching them, and it gets to be a habit. Sorry. Enzo didn't know how to tell her that he liked her easy way of touching him, because if he did admit that he would be giving her the wrong impression, wouldn't he? Creating complications he didn't need, possibly hurting her as well, not a risk he should take, he acknowledged grimly. Look, I have to go up to Glasgow to see this old guy who is a silent partner in Mackey's with my grandfather. He's entitled to a personal report on the firm. But Robinson Davies was at that ghastly dinner party in Italy, with his wife and everyone present, was very shocked by what happened. I could do with some company to get through lunch with the couple. What happened? I already said that I'm not going to give you the details. Not even thumbscrews would get that confession out of me, he stated with a sardonic twist of his beautiful, stubborn mouth. But will you accompany me to Glasgow if your sister is able to stay here to take care of the kids? Sky thought about it in the space of a moment. She knew she should say no. She knew that further extended exposure to Lorenzo Durante was bad for her, and that she would be wiser to avoid him to the best of her ability. But she also knew how much she owed him for their current safety and stability. I'll do it. Glasgow? We're flying up. I have a business meeting with Robinson first, and then I'll pick you up at the hotel, and we'll go to lunch at their home the next day. I can wear the same dress I wore last night. No, you can't. They're a very traditional couple, and they don't do anything flash. If you have a reasonable outfit of your own, it will do fine, he advanced. That's a relief, Sky told him cheerfully. I didn't want you to have to buy me anything more. You really need to be greedier around me, Enzo complained. I'm used to buying stuff for women. Well, you're not buying stuff for me. It's just uncomfortable, she explained with a wry shake of her blonde, curly head as Shona clasped her knees, and she lifted her baby sister onto her lap. You can't mix as equals when one person is doing all the giving. It hasn't bothered any other woman in my life. You've been involved with the wrong kind of women then. Enzo didn't know a polite way of telling her that she sounded like his grandmother. And there was no polite way of saying that casual sex in return for his expected generosity went with the same territory, even though nobody was crude enough to state the fact. So, he said nothing, merely watched her steadily from beneath long black curling eyelashes, dark eyes flashing gold as the morning sunlight lit them. Now she wanted to kill him for the length and lushness of his eyelashes. Sky conceded, wondering in some desperation when she would return to sanity and calm again. In Enzo's presence, she was all of a twitter, like some stage-maiden ant. So, when's this trip taking place? She prompted. We'll fly up Friday and be back by Saturday evening. With that casual conclusion, Enzo vaulted upright. I'll see you tonight. If Mavis comes in back in time, I'll be able to go shopping on my own, Sky said with relief. I won't need to bother your security team. No, they must still accompany you. Enzo had stilled in the doorway, his lean, darkly handsome features taut. Unless your ex is in police custody, you're not safe. Paula spotted him sitting in a car in a lay-by just up the road yesterday. He's persistent, and I don't want you taking any unnecessary risks until he's off the streets. Sky paled at the news that Richie had been spotted nearby, and swallowed the thickness in her throat. The prospect of the complete freedom she longed to reclaim shrank again, because, even though she didn't want to admit it, she was scared of Richie. A shiver ran down her spine at the confirmation that he knew where she was living, and that the day before he could have been that close to them. I'll see you later. Enzo's firm footsteps sounded in the hall. Enzo going? Brody prompted in his little voice. I'll be home later, Enzo repeated for her little brother's benefit. She had only finished cleaning up the kitchen when the bell went. A delivery man handed her a big bouquet of flowers. Who's it for? She asked. Sky Davison. She retreated indoors with the red roses and looked for a vase in the kitchen. Who on earth would send her flowers? Enzo? Without hesitation, she phoned him because she had to know one way or another. Did you send me flowers? She queried as soon as she heard his deep voice. At his end of the phone, Enzo frowned reflexively. With the sole exception of his grandmother, he had never sent a woman flowers in his life. No, I'm not really a flower-giving sort of guy with women, he admitted, feeling strangely uncomfortable at making that statement while wondering who the hell had sent her a bouquet. Then that means Richie sent them. You see, there was no card with them, she responded tensely. Sorry for disturbing you at work. And she was gone before he could muster his thoughts into a better response. He groaned out loud. Her beast of an ex was sending her flowers. What a creep the guy was. Later, he could not comprehend what he did next, because he summoned his PA and ordered flowers for Sky. One of those extravagant wildflower-type arrangements, he described vaguely, instinctively shying away from the romantic intent inherent in sending roses and the like. 2 hours later, Richie's roses dispatched to the bin because the sight of them made her flesh crawl. Sky had a second delivery. A magnificent artistic bouquet was brought in by Paula, who was wreathed in unexpected smiles. From the boss, she announced with deep satisfaction, as if Enzo had trekked through the Amazon jungle to acquire them in some great, praiseworthy feat. Sky texted him. Enzo, you shouldn't have, but the flowers are really beautiful, thank you. And Enzo smiled. Well, he had only done it to take her mind off the creep's stratagems, he assured himself. And Sky was far too sensible and practical not to appreciate that there was nothing romantic about the gesture. The post came in the afternoon. A letter tumbled out of the usual pile of brochures, addressed to some previous occupant of the property, and her heart almost stopped dead when she saw the envelope, and her own name, because she recognized Richie's very distinctive copperplate handwriting, immediately, and turned pale as milk. What is it? Alana asked. A letter from Richie, Sky told her, dropping it on the kitchen table for the younger woman to see. Bin it, her more outspoken sister advised. No, I can't do that. I have to open it, and if there's threats in it, I'll have to take it to the police and hand it over and tell the solicitor. Sky collapsed down on a chair. It would be really dumb of him to write down threats. Is he that stupid? I don't want to open it, Sky admitted dully. It just rakes it all up again and plunges me back into what a pathetic mistake I made with him. Ask Paola to check it first. She's a really tough lady, Alana said admiringly. I've signed up for a martial arts class starting after Christmas, purely from seeing her in action in that car park with Richie. It was so cool. Involving Paola would be gutless. This is my responsibility, Sky declared, lifting a knife off the table where they had had their lunch to slit open the envelope. She read Richie's letter with a sinking heart and a growing sense of disbelief. There was no expression of regret, no admission of fault beyond a reference to her fall and his apparent hope that she had recovered and calmed down. It infuriated her almost as much as it intimidated her. And when she read to the end and realized that he was trying to get her to meet up with him, her tummy turned over queasily at even the suggestion. She tossed the letter over to her sister. He's trying to get me to agree to see him. Of course he is. He'll be wanting you to drop those assault charges. He's going to lose his job and may well go to prison, Alana pointed out. Have you calmed down? Not in the slightest. I'll never forget or forgive what he did to me. So, will you agree to tell Enzo I'm in for that assistant night shift manager promotion at the Blackthorn? Her sister was returning to an earlier conversation. I don't think it would be fair, Sky parried a second time. Alana grimaced. He owns the blasted place. It would mean nothing to him. He's done me enough favors, Sky countered. Alana rolled her eyes. You're the one doing him favors. Fake girlfriend? Trip to Glasgow? Alana, look at what he's had done to Mavis. She's transformed, Sky argued. He must spend hundreds of pounds on that car. I reckon thousands, her sister opined. It didn't even look that good when Mum bought it 10 years ago. Enzo arrived home to an empty house and was greeted rapturously only by Sparky. Sky and her sister went out shopping, Paula reported. Antonio and Matteo are with them. Enzo reheated the meal left for him in the microwave and wondered if Sky really thought he was stupid enough to need the step-by-step instructions she had left for him. But, on another level, he was telling himself that he should be relieved that Sky was absent. Their relationship and even the word threatened a man who didn't have relationships had a weird lack of boundaries, and he had sent her those showy flowers on prominent display in the hall. She worked for him, he reminded himself fiercely. She was an employee even if she didn't feel like one, any more than the kids and the dog felt like an employee's dependents. He had got too close to her, become too involved. Intelligence warned him that he should pull back. Having eaten, he went into the room he was using as an office, and stubbornly ignored the sounds of Sky and her siblings returning home. Sky couldn't sleep that night. She had wanted to see Enzo, and she hadn't seen him, and then had warned herself that she had no need to see him either. The clingy housekeeper knocking on the door with an offer of supper? No, that was not a label she sought. She grimaced. Around 1 a.m, weary of tossing and turning, she went down to the kitchen to have a cup of tea and dug Richie's letter out of her bag to have another look at it. She refused to be scared of him or of anything he had written. Unhappily, all those nasty little jabs about how overly emotional she could be, how she jumped to conclusions, how she always thought the worst in situations and dramatized herself, washed over her afresh and knocked her flat. Rereading the letter had not been a good idea, she acknowledged. Even mulling over his criticisms of her after he had violently assaulted her was crazy. Enzo heard Sky heading downstairs and worried that something was amiss. He climbed out of bed and tugged on a pair of jeans, deeming a t-shirt unnecessary. Barefoot, he descended the stairs without a sound and saw Sky sitting at the kitchen table, her head buried in her folded arms, her narrow shoulders shaking. What's wrong? Enzo demanded, striding over to her, registering that she was quietly crying. Go away, she told him hoarsely. I'm having a mini breakdown, and I don't need an audience. What's this? Enzo lifted the letter off the table. He had the nerve to write you a letter after what he did? He bit out incredulously. Enzo read it and rolled his eyes, tossing it back down on the table while Sky mopped her eyes and struggled to regain control. You can tell he's abusive simply by the stuff he writes. He beat you up and he's finding fault with you. I know. How could I have been foolish enough to move in with a man like that? She gasped, stricken, and leapt out of her chair to rush over and put on the kettle. Do you want something to drink? Water will do me. Enzo breathed in deep and slow, hating that sense of being out of his depth. But there was no use pretending that he was experienced at comforting distressed women when he had always avoided distressed women like the plague. As he followed her across the spacious kitchen, he rested both hands on her slender shoulders in an effort to ground her. You didn't know what he was like until you moved in with him. People don't wear their secrets, flaws, and kinks like badges. They keep up a front to lure you in until you trust them. But you're not to blame. He's a weirdo and I'm dropping that letter into the police tomorrow morning. Thanks, she muttered. But I'm just so angry with myself. Try being angry with him. How dare he send you flowers and write to you after assaulting you? Enzo framed in a raw undertone. Call your solicitor and update him about this. I'm quite sure that the police will have warned your ex to stay well away from you, and now he's harassing you. Sky spun round with a moisture-beaded glass of water for him. He set it down on the counter behind her and stared down at her with intense, dark, golden eyes. You shouldn't be crying about that bastard. You should be celebrating the fact that you escaped him. That letter upset me. I'll get over it. And I wasn't crying about him. I was crying about how stupid I was to trust him, and now the kids have had all this upheaval. Your siblings are perfectly happy here. Enzo, working here is only a staging post because it's temporary. I have to think of the future and we'll be moving on again. His hands slid down from her shoulders to her hands. Take a deep breath and give yourself time to recover from what happened to you first. It's much too soon for you to be freaking out about the future. I wish it was. But I've already been here 2 weeks and in another 6 weeks you may be gone. She pointed out, frantically striving not to look at his bare chest. Half naked, there was so much of him, an expanse of bronzed hair, roughened muscular flesh that any woman would have gawped at. He towered over her with his taut abs, well-developed biceps, and a flat stomach framed by that fabled V of lean muscle leading down to his hip. Perspiration broke out on her short upper lip as she looked up at him, connecting with stormy, dark as night eyes. Beautiful eyes, changeable according to mood. She had long since learned. The tension in the atmosphere was stifling her ability to breathe. She sucked in air a little desperately. Enzo ran a long finger along the lower line of her lips, feeling that soft, pillowy mouth he wanted under his and fighting that instinct with all his might. Holding her breath tight, in a spirit of unfamiliar daring, Sky lifted her hand and shakily traced the waistband of his jeans. He was as aroused as she was. The prominent bulge below the denim assured her of that, and it made her feel almost lightheaded with satisfaction, vindicating the feminine power that Richie had assured her she didn't have. One of the many insults he had hurled while she'd lain on that floor in terror had been that she was sexless and frigid, useless to any normal man. "You don't want this," Enzo told her hoarsely. "What I don't want," she whispered unevenly, "is another man making my choices for me." "I'm trying to protect you," Enzo gritted between clenched teeth, because with every breath she drew her small chest stirred beneath the thin pajama top she wore, the peaks of her pebbles indenting the cloth, and he wanted to grab her, ravish her, do everything his raging libido demanded that he do. His lean hands clenched into knotted fists by his side. "I can protect myself," Sky argued, spinning around to walk away, chin lifted against rejection, determined not to betray that another ego-squashing wound had been inflicted. Enzo ground something out in explosive Italian, and then lifted her up against him to set her down on the table edge, standing back again, deliberately not crowding her. "You need a friend right now, not a lover." The ease with which he lifted her off her feet and set her down again struck her as ridiculously sexy. He was strong, but he didn't use that strength against her. "There's nothing wrong with a friend with benefits," Sky heard herself say. And that declaration disagreed with every moral tenet and ideal Sky had ever cherished, and she knew it did. But she wanted Enzo, and she was willing to fib, because she knew that it would only ever be a passing thing with him, and that there was no other way of being with him. Either she accepted that, or she didn't. But right now, after her life had fallen in round her ears with every hope and expectation destroyed, she was struggling to find her feet in a new world, and somehow being desired by Enzo made her feel better, so much better she couldn't believe it. "I'm not sure I can believe that you mean that," Enzo murmured, searching dark golden eyes compelling hers. "I was very sure you were a white picket fence girl with a church at the end of the drive." Sky flushed to the very roots of her hair, because Enzo had already had her labeled, and he was entirely correct with his estimate. She had wanted love. She had wanted a wedding. She had wanted everything perfect, only to discover that life was not perfect any more than men were or even she was. And now she was in a new place, ready to try something different, something more, something much bolder than her usual choices. "I'm changing my outlook." Enzo rested his mesmeric dark golden eyes on her hot face. "But I don't want you doing that just for me. I don't want to hurt you. With me, it's sex and a good time." "There's nothing else on offer," he spelt out curtly. Sky gulped because that sounded so harsh and hurtful and risky. It sounded like a devil's bargain for a young woman who believed in love, who was already getting more attached than she should be to the man in front of her. She swallowed hard, her hands gripping the edge of the table as she sat there. "I understand. I don't think I'd be much good at anything deeper," Enzo breathed in a roughened undertone. But he had a huge heart even though he hid it to the very best of his ability, Sky reflected, confused by him and by all the conflicting messages he gave her. His actions with her had taught her to trust in that heart of his, even though he was not emotionally available to her. He could be warm and gentle one moment, then cold and hard the next. He was unfathomable, unpredictable, everything she had once avoided in a man. Her brain screamed that she would be making a mistake, but thought had no control over instinct, and every instinct she possessed drew her to Enzo. "You deserve a much nicer guy," Enzo added, still stubbornly holding back. Sky looked up at him and laughed because she couldn't help it. She stretched out her arms to tug him closer, hands traveling up his taut spine to his shoulders, and even sitting on the table, it was a stretch for her. "Shut up, Enzo. Please stop talking and just kiss me."